So I believe that if you want to be successful in trucking, what's more important? To be really good and knowledgeable at business or at trucking? At business. She got it right. And yet what we do all the time is we want to know about trucking. And I can teach you all kinds of things about trucking. And it's not that you shouldn't know those things. You should. But people spend all their time so focused on, I want to be really good at trucking. And you should. But they ignore business. And I can tell you that the most successful people I work with aren't the people that are second and third generation truck drivers or owner operators or grew up in a trucking family. They're very good at trucking, but a lot of times they think that's all it takes. It's much more important to be good at business. So today we're going to focus a lot on business. I'm teaching a 16-week online course right now. Anybody in here in that course with me? Okay. Got over 140 people taking that class with me online for 16 weeks. It's a 16-week class about how to get started, how to buy your first truck. We don't even talk about trucks till week 10. Because it's not about trucks. It's about business if you want to be successful. And that's what we fail to do in this industry a lot of times. We think it's all about the trucks. Quick seminar schedule. If you're here yesterday, we talked about the big picture. Today we're going to talk about more of the detail, the step-by-step, how do you make that transition. And then if you can join us tomorrow, we're going to talk about making it through that first year, surviving. That's step number one. But more than that, I want you to survive the first year. I want you to thrive. I want you to profit. So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. So back to the topic of business. How many of you watch the show Shark Tank? Love that show. How about The Profit? That's it. I like The Profit actually better. Great show. I learned for a TV show, 2 TV shows, I learned about business from those shows. And I've been doing this for 35 years, business. But I watch every episode of both those shows. Now, how did Mark Cuban make all of his money? Billions of dollars. It was technology. Satellite technology, entertainment, things like that. Lori Grenier, she's the queen of QVC. That's how she made her money. Barbara Corcoran, real estate. Kevin O'Leary, he developed a children's educational software program. That's what he did. Why is it that they can invest in every kind of business you can imagine? If you watch the show, you've seen them, invest in companies that make ice cream, or a bicycle part, or a new exercise gadget. How is it that they can invest in all of those companies and make those companies better? Do they become experts at all of those industries? Hell no. You wouldn't be able to do that in 20 lifetimes. What are they really good at? Just business. Business is business. Don't get so wrapped up thinking, well, this is trucking. We have to know trucking. You do. If you want to be good in your own industry, you should know your industry. But you can't ignore basic business principles. That's what's going to make you successful. Many of the seminars I give, including the first 10 weeks of that program about how to buy your first truck and become an owner-operator, I could give that class to anybody in any business and it would benefit them. Because business is business. So keep that in mind, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So, when you become a carrier, you have some new responsibilities. Things that you didn't do when you were leased to somebody else. And basically they come down to, I hate to even put this one on the list, but I do. Because most owner-operators lease to a carrier. When I say most, I mean over 90%. Still don't have a good basic accounting system. That's just sad. But when you become a carrier and you don't do it, now you're just asking for problems. So you should have this from before you ever buy your first truck. You should have an accounting system in place. But before you become a carrier, you really better get this part done. You're going to have to do things like credit checks, invoicing, collections. You don't have to do any of that stuff when you're leased to a carrier. They take care of all that. When you pull a load as an independent, I know we have a lot of independents in the room already. Do you get paid before or after you deliver the service? After, right? Is that the way most transactions in business work? Do you get to go to McDonald's and eat the food and then go back and pay them a week later?
Usually wants money up front.
Yeah, most businesses want to get paid up front. Businesses that get paid after the transaction usually do a lot of work to make sure that you're going to pay them, right? They do credit checks, right? If you ever want to buy something on credit, don't they want to know a lot about you? Well, why is it that owner-operators are willing to pull loads for 100 different brokers in a year and never bother to see if they're creditworthy or not? And then wonder why they didn't get paid. You need to do that kind of stuff up front. There are tools available. Truckstop.com has awesome tools to check credit, how many days it takes brokers to pay, and yet most owner-operators don't even bother to use it. And then they call me and say, I didn't get paid, what do I do now? It's a little late now. Should have checked that first. Insurance changes a lot when you become a carrier, and insurance is a volatile market. I don't even understand why it's so volatile. There, you can see one year where an independent with one truck is paying $5,000 or $6,000 a year for insurance. A couple years later, they're paying $16,000 to $20,000 for the exact same insurance. And then 4 or 5 years later, it'll be back down at $6,000. I've watched this cycle and I don't even understand it. But you have to realize, when you lease to a carrier, your insurance is basically pennies. I mean, it barely shows up on your profit and loss. It's just not much. If you want to become a carrier, depending on, and right now insurance is expensive again. $15,000 is not unusual for one truck for the year. That's a significant cost. So you need to understand, because what happens is now you have to get public liability insurance. You know, if you screw up and run somebody over when you're leased to a carrier, it's their insurance that takes care of it. When you become the carrier, you now have to have that insurance. You also have to have cargo insurance, which you normally don't do if you're leased to a carrier. You have to deal with all the compliance stuff. You know, when you're leased to a carrier, those pesky people that work in the safety department are bugging you to watch videos and turn in all your paperwork on time and where's your maintenance reports. And yeah, you get to be those pesky people in your own company now. You have to make sure that you're compliant with all those government regulations. Fuel tax. Very, very few owner-operators leased to carriers deal with fuel tax. You pay it most of the time, but the carrier handles all the paperwork. How many of you have ever had to file your own fuel tax reports? Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass. It's not as bad as it. How many of you ever filed fuel tax reports prior to IFTA? Anybody in the room? Okay, a couple here. Remember how much fun that was? If you ran in 48 states, guess how many fuel tax reports you had to file? 48. You had to file a fuel tax report with every state you ran in. What a nightmare that was. Now you get to do it with one state. That's what IFTA did. IFTA brought it all together. But when you become a carrier, you're going to have to file your fuel tax reports or pay somebody else to do it. And sales and marketing. You don't have to do this, but you absolutely should. And here's another huge mistake that most small carriers make. In most businesses, your single biggest challenge is figuring out where you're going to get your customers. How are you going to convince somebody to pay you for something? That's the biggest challenge in almost every business, and I've run a lot of different businesses in my life. That's your single biggest challenge. If I want to be a carrier, do I have to worry about this? I don't have to. Because if I said, right now I'm in business, I'm a carrier, would I have any trouble finding work? Well, hell no. How many loads were posted this morning, Brent? Did you look?
I did not look this morning, but on Monday morning, we said this yesterday, 617,000 loads are available on truckstop.com. And it's probably the same today. It's been that way.
Yeah.
It's been between 500,000 to 600,000 plus the last 6 months.
There's 600,000 customers looking for you. How many businesses have that opportunity? Almost none.
Amen.
You have to do zero sales and marketing. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Just because you don't have to doesn't mean you shouldn't. In fact, if you do it, you move to the head of the class. You put yourself in the top 1% like that. And in this market, the craziest market I have seen in 30 plus years, this is when nobody's going to bother selling and marketing themselves. Why would they? There's 600,000 loads. Anybody ever heard the term contrarian? It comes from the investing world. Contrarians are the people that do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. If everybody else is selling, they're buying. If everybody's buying, they're selling. But they're smart enough to know when and how to do that and make it work. I like to be a contrarian in business. If 99% of the small carriers are just relying on the fact that there's loads every time they want them, I'm going to be out selling hard. Because nobody else is, so guess what? Everybody notices me now. So those 600 loads, great way to go make money, especially if you understand rates and lanes. But there's loads out there that aren't even going to make that board. I'm going to go sell myself. And I'm going to market. All right, so we're going to break today down into two categories of things. Because remember, today is all about the step-by-step process to becoming a carrier. So this is a technical term. You need to do the stuff. And then you need to do the really important stuff. So those are both technical terms. 99% of the people will focus all of their time, energy, and money on the stuff. And I know this because when they ask me about how to become a carrier, they always ask me about the stuff. But the 1%, the contrarians, will spend all their time, energy, and money on the really important stuff. Now, if it's really important, why would only 1% of the people do it? I have no idea. I don't get it. But that's what's going to happen. So let's talk about what the stuff is and what the really important stuff is. Before we get to that, which group would you rather belong to? The 99% or the 1%? Yeah, that's why you're here. So we will talk about the stuff, but not for long, because I want to get to the really important stuff, the reason you're here. So, the stuff. You got to register your business with the state. If you're a sole proprietor, you really don't even have to do that. But if you're going to become a carrier, really that's the time you might as well make that move to register as an LLC or an S Corp, or an LLC taxed as an S Corp. I'm not going to get into the details of all the stuff, because that's what I don't want to do. But I want to make you aware of what it would be. So we'd register, then we would choose our business entity, probably an LLC or an S Corp. We'd get an EIN, an employer identification number. It's just the number we need from the IRS. You may even already have one. We got to go deal with that insurance thing. Because again, you should make sure that you can get insured at a price you can afford before you ever file for your authority. Because I've seen people spend all the time and the money getting their authority and then they can't get insurance that they can afford. That kind of shoots the plan down. So you need to be working on this insurance piece first. You got to register with the DOT. That gets you your DOT number. That's not the same as authority. So first you get the DOT number. Then you apply for the MC number, the motor carrier number. That's your authority. This is paperwork. It's stuff. Then you file a VOC3. BOC stands for blanket of coverage. And this is more stuff. The reason we have to do this is because you are a very small business that could potentially be operating in 48 states. When you file for your BOC, what you're doing is paying another company to receive all of your legal documents if anything happens in one of those other states. So if somebody wants to sue you in Idaho, but your business runs out of Maine, you have to have a legal representation in Idaho and Arizona and every place else you run. So that's what the BOC3 is. For the most part, you're going to file this one time. You could be in business for 30 years and never have to think about this again. You'll get your apportioned plates. A lot of times your carrier does that for you. Now you'll set up an IFTA account. That's your International Fuel Tax Agreement. That's what I talked about with the fuel tax. You'll have to do your unified carrier registration. There's even more stuff. You'll have to do permitting. You'll have to be compliant with, used to be just hours of service. Now you're going to have to be compliant with hours of service and an ELD of some sort. You're going to have to be in a drug testing consortium or have some sort of drug testing program. The carrier takes care of that for you now. You need to make sure your truck signage is all done right. Most carriers do that for you. They give you the signs. You have to do that. And you will go through an FMCSA new entry audit new entrant audit in the first year. So this is stuff, right? And does that sound a little complicated? Does anybody even know what most of that stuff is? Some of you do because you've been through it. For somebody that's been through it, raise your hand. Somebody that's been through it. All right, who am I going to pick on? I'm going to pick on you. Yeah. So once you've been through all this stuff, do you ever really think about it again?
Well,
Why? I'm glad I picked on you. This should be interesting. Other than like insurance, but for the most part, do you think about your VOC3?
probably don't think about that.
Okay, good. Do you think about your unified carrier registration other than every year when you have to do it?
Other than every year, no.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Does any of this stuff really matter to your business? Other than they make you do it.
You gotta be in order. You gotta get the file.
Yeah, but that's it. How much brain power do you want to waste on this stuff? Not much, not me anyway. What's that? Oh, yeah. If they didn't make you do this stuff, would you do it? Hell no. But this is what everybody wants to focus on. They're all freaked out. I gotta go do this, yeah, I know. You'd pay somebody to do all this stuff. And honestly, I would. Unless you just really enjoy being waterboarded or having bamboo spikes shoved up your fingernails. If you enjoy those things, go do this. Otherwise, just pay somebody. People say, well, it's expensive. Look at all the money I could save if I just did it myself. That's one way of looking at it. But what if we took all this time and headache dealing with government agencies and we focused on the important stuff? We could make 10 times more money than we're going to pay somebody to do the stuff. So let's talk about the really important stuff then. Get an accounting system in place. If we have time today, and I kind of doubt it. I mean, you know me, I have a hard time saying good morning in an hour. I'll try to get to some basic accounting. But if we don't, you either have to learn this yourself or you got to pay somebody to do it. This is the core of your business. This is the scorecard. One of the first things I do every single morning in my business is look at my numbers. Now my business is a little more complicated. When I own trucks, I looked at it maybe once a week. Because my numbers didn't change that much. I knew them inside and out. My business today is a lot more complicated. I wake up, have my bulletproof coffee, of course, and start going through my numbers for the day. And you've got to get in that habit. Once you have the system in place, you have to use it. You know, I'll ask people like, you know, do you have an accounting system? They'll say, yeah. And I'll say, let me see some of your reports. And I'll look at it. This is great. Congratulations. And then I'll ask them a number off that report. And I'll say, well, let me see the report. No, you should know this. I should be able to wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you should know that number. And when you look at something every day or every week, pretty soon you just know those numbers inside and out. I sold my trucking business in 2012. I could still tell you from 2012 or 2010 what my gross revenue was per mile, what my net revenue per mile was, what my driver cost was, what my fuel. I can still tell you those numbers today. Because it's kind of like your birthday or your social security number. After a while, you look at it enough, you kind of remember it. That should be your goal when it comes to your business numbers. You should be looking at them so often that you just know them without looking at the paper. Now, you're not going to do that in the first month, but the more you do it, the better you're going to get. You should spend some time defining your business model. What do I mean by that? First off, are there a lot of different things you can do in trucking? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. That's why I like this industry. We can pull all kinds of different trailers. We can pull all kinds of different freight. We could work in different regions or different areas or different lanes. We could work with brokers. We could hire our own sales agent to go find us freight. We could work directly with shippers. Lots and lots of different options. How many of you that are already in business, and be honest, actually have a business model or a business plan that would tell me exactly what your business was all about in writing? Why not? Why wouldn't you take the time to really lay out what your business is all about, or what you want it to be all about? Where do you want it to be in a year or 5 years? 10 maybe. I have a hard time thinking that far out, but I do this usually 4 times a year. I sit back down and I redefine my business, where it is, where I want it to go, where it's going to be a year from now or 5 years from now. I do that about 4 times a year, once a quarter. You should be doing that. This is the important stuff. This is the stuff that only about 1% of businesses do. This is what will make you different. Then there's some really, really important stuff. Identify your potential customers. How many of you were here yesterday? And how many of you have been in my seminars before? So one of the things I repeat almost every seminar, and it doesn't matter if I'm talking to owner-operators, big fleets, a group like the brokers that Brett and I will be at less than a month from now, the TIA up in Home Desert, California. It doesn't matter which group I talk about, I almost always work this into my presentation somewhere. My last presentation a couple weeks ago was C.H. Robinson. I work this in, I always do. I work it in so I remind myself of this over and over and over. STS, secret to success. Wouldn't you want to know the secret to success? Crazy thing is, I'm not sure why it's still a secret. In fact, if you Google on Amazon books with secret to success in the book, there's like, I don't know, 62,000 of them. How can there be 62,000 books about something and it's still a secret? But I'll tell you, it is still a secret. I study business. I study business every day, all day. Every time I interact with the business, I'm watching what they do. And most businesses fail, really. And the ones that are really good at this stand out. I have some absolute favorites. I used to fly a lot before I started traveling in the coach. And I flew on all the different airlines because in the beginning, all I would do is search for the cheapest flight. Just get me there cheap, I don't care. But the more you travel, the more you think, okay, I'm done with the cheap stuff. Southwest is an amazing company. Absolutely amazing company from top to bottom. Those kind of companies stand out. The one example everybody uses, and I'm a big fan, Apple. An amazing company from top to bottom. There are several like that. Some of my favorite companies in the trucking industry, Michelin, just an amazing company. One that I have a new appreciation for now, that I haven't paid much attention to in all these years, C.H. Robinson. Boy, was I impressed when I got to visit their campus and spend some time with their people and see how they run that company. That is a very well-run company. Most companies are kind of mediocre, just somewhere in the middle. Not very impressive. They get the job done. I'm okay. I got the product or service I needed. I don't want to be mediocre. So the secret to success, what I'm getting to at this point is, business all comes down to one thing. One simple sentence. I said it yesterday. I say it every week. Somewhere I say this. So I remind myself of this. It's real simple. You provide the most value you can possibly provide to your customer. That's what you do. That's what businesses do. Business has two responsibilities, just two. One is to provide value to the customer. If you're not doing that, why are you even in business? And then somebody's going to say, well, to make money. Good, because that's your second responsibility, is to be profitable. Because if you're not profitable, you won't be in business. What's the best way to be profitable? Provide value to your customer. That's all business is. Provide value to your customer and do it in a way that makes you a profit. And the two work really well together. The more value you provide to other people, the more they are willing to pay you. So identify who are your customers. I want to go back to that one for a second. Who are your customers? Who are your potential customers? If you want to own a truck, somebody give me an answer. Who are your potential customers? Brokers, absolutely. Brokers exist for a reason. Brokers make for a very efficient transportation system. We don't want to try to run this business without brokers. That would be a disaster. They make the system very efficient, and they are your potential customer. They're not your only potential customer. You could go directly to the shipper. They're a potential customer, right? Have any of you ever tried that route? Is it difficult?
Not necessarily.
Oh, good. Good. You found some ways to do it. It's harder. Brokers are easy. They're begging for your truck. Not so much with, and part of the problem, shippers are begging for trucks right now too. But you better find the right shipper, because most shippers don't want to deal with 37 little trucking companies. That's why they hire a broker. Let the broker deal with 37 different little trucking companies. So going shipper direct has some of its own challenges, but it has some rewards too. Because now you get that piece the broker is taking. But that broker earns their money. There's no question about it. And when you go try to sell shipper direct, you'll find out how they earn it. Now, clearly identify the value you bring. What is your differentiator? What makes you different? Hey, Brad.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about elevator speeches.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, we talked about this yesterday. One of the things that is important when you're communicating to anybody, no matter whether it's you're just meeting them for the first time or you're trying to sell your business, is to be able to create value in their mind that you can bring value to them. And you get about 30 seconds with somebody. You ever had anybody waste your time? You go, I'm not interested. Thank you. No, sure, yeah, whatever. And then you walk off. You never want to talk to them again. You get about 30 seconds. So an elevator speech is that 30-second speech that you're going to give to a prospect that you want to get their freight from, that you need to create value in their mind. So how can you express your value to them in 30 seconds? Because that's about how long you have. If you get past that 30 seconds, you get every opportunity to sell them. So that's what an elevator speech is. That's how you create value. So Kevin's got a very good way to express his elevator speech. So,
and I have another one today.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah, I'm going to give you I'll give you my elevator speech right now, the business I run right now. And I gave it to you yesterday. And I have lots of different versions of it. It doesn't have to be one. Sometimes I, pick and choose a different version of it. But I also had one when I had trucks and I moved freight. So let's just stick with that. Most of you are here yesterday. I'll give it to you. My elevator speech today. I meet somebody from any company, an owner, operator, whatever it happens to be. What's one thing that people ask you when you're in business and you're at meeting things? What do you do? Common thing to say, right? You go to a party, what do? I help people that own trucks become wildly profitable. 4 seconds. Does that make you want to ask me more questions? Yeah. I'm not going to try to tell you everything I do in 30 seconds. First of all, I'm going to bore you to tears. I want you to ask me questions. So I'm going to keep it real short and sweet, and I'm going to pique your interest. Here was my elevator speech when I had trucks. I move freight really efficiently, and I solve problems. What kind of problem? Isn't that the next thing you want to ask me? All I need to do is get you to ask me a question, and I've got you hooked. And then I'll get you to ask me another question. And pretty soon, guess who's controlling the conversation? We all want to control the conversation by telling people things. It's much better to say things that make them ask us questions. That's how you control the conversation. That's how you sell. Get them to ask. The other thing you need to do, I'm really big on this. I read a lot of books. I said this yesterday. I average about 2 books a week, and I have for most of my life. Going back to when I was a kid. It's just something I've always done. I love to read. When I drive, I listen to audiobooks because that's an amazing amount of time that I get to read. But somebody else reads it too. If you're not listening to audiobooks when you drive, you are missing your single biggest opportunity. You could get the equivalent of a PhD in a year or 2 driving a truck. And it would be better than a PhD because it would be real world stuff that actually matters instead of what they teach most of us in college these days. What's so funny?
I preach that to my kids all the time.
There you go. Real world stuff. So one of the books that was an absolute game changer for me. How many of you have ever taken some sort of a personality profile? Anybody? There's a bunch of them out there. I've taken a whole bunch. I took this one maybe, I don't know, the first version of this maybe 15 years ago. And it changed everything for me. How many of you know that you're good at some things and really lousy at other things? Yeah, that was me. And the things that I was really bad at, I thought they were really important for business, so I kept trying to get better at them. I'm really bad at detail. I'm really bad at discipline. I'm, like I said yesterday, I jump off the cliff and build my parachute on the way down. So, but I thought, boy, that's really bad. You know, you better get good at this detail stuff. So I would try to force myself to do it. And it made me crazy. It made me miserable. And I would white knuckle it for a month or 2, and then I'd stop doing it again. And I thought, God, it's never going to be successful. I can't learn this stuff. Well, this book changed everything. This book identifies your strengths and weaknesses, the things you're not good at. And then there was one idea in this book that changed everything for me. It said, ignore the things you're bad at and focus on the things you're good at and become great at them. And that changed everything for me. So if you're bad at something, crazy as this sounds, maybe just don't do it at all. Or if it has to get done, pay somebody else to do it. And figure out how to pay somebody else. Go get so good at the things you're good at that you'll have plenty of money to pay people to do the things you're bad at. Changed everything for me. Learning your strengths is really critical. And this is one of the best books I've found. They break everything down into 9 different strengths. And I could teach this whole thing for 3 hours. This is stuff amazing to me. So, because I picked on you this morning, I'm going to give you a copy of this book. Yes. In Audible, so you can listen to it, or in a hard copy, whichever one you want. You're welcome. So, when you read the book, it explains all the different strengths and how to use them, but then there's a test. And you get the test free with the book. If you don't want to buy the book, you can just go take the test. I think it's like $15. Because you buy the book for less than that, and you get the test for free. And you go online and you just answer these simple questions. It's not about what you know. It's about how you react in different situations. So the question is just, you're in this situation, would you do this, or this? And then they just keep asking you all these different things, and then they give you your strengths. I've taken this test many, many times. I go back and take it over. My top 2 strengths never change. They just sometimes flip back and forth between 1 and 2. The words they use sometimes tell you what the strength is and sometimes it doesn't, but in the book they explain it. My top 2 strengths, I'm an influencer. That's pretty clear. It is what it means. My strength is to influence people. The people that have been in my seminars and listen to my radio shows, isn't that what I do all the time? I try to get people to change what they do. It's my strength. I'm an influencer. The other one is I'm what they call a pioneer in this. And a pioneer is the person who's always looking for a better way to do everything. They're always reading, finding out the new research, buying the product before it's even proven. They know it's going to be bad. I'm the guy that will beta test software when it's I'll even alpha test software when it's not even ready for beta yet. Because I want to be the first one. That's what a pioneer is. So, do those 2 strengths really come out in even my radio show? Isn't that what I do? I go research things. I find a better way to do stuff, and then I influence other people to do it. That wasn't by accident. That's because I read this book and thought, I am... Now, here's the interesting thing. You may not be good at your top 2 strengths. You have to develop them. But the idea is this is what you are naturally good at. That was the amazing thing about this. They're able to tell what you're good at, even if you're not good at it. It's what your potential is. So after I read this book, I decided, and the book tells you to do this, I spend every day in my strengths. I ignore my weaknesses. I build my business around those strengths. If you want to become a really successful business owner, find out what your strengths are, what your potential is, even if you're not good at it now. Start focusing on that. We test every person before we hire them. I run everybody through this test. If you've ever dealt with the people in our company, you can start to pay attention. How many of you ever dealt with Kim on the phone? Kim is what basically comes down to Kim cares about everybody's feelings. She wants to make sure they're all happy and satisfied, and so Kim is in our customer tribe care department because she takes care of people. I'd be on the phone calling them idiots. I'm the last person that should be in that job. But we test everybody in our company and we help them work in their strengths all the time. For one, it just makes you a lot happier. And 2, it will make you far more successful. So if you haven't read that book and taken the test, I highly recommend it. This is something we are so bad in this industry, and I just don't get it. Who are our potential customers? Brokers. Really, that should be where most of you are going to focus when you have your authority, is finding and working with good brokers. I do a whole thing, Brett and I do, about stop chasing the rate. Stop doing the one and done. You know, I called this broker today because he seems to have the highest rate around, but tomorrow the odds of him having the highest rate again are slim to none, so I'll be calling another broker tomorrow. I do tax returns for people. I have had owner-operators turn in 250 1099s in 1 year. That means they worked for 250 different brokers in 1 year. Did they build a relationship with anybody? No. My goal when I had trucks, 5 brokers a year. That's it. Because now I can focus on those relationships and I can get to the freight that really is the stuff I want. But here's the other thing. What do you do all day as truck drivers? Really basic. This is not a trick question. What do you do all day? You drive. You can probably go just about anywhere in the country, right? And get paid to do it. And yet, very few ever bother to go meet their customers. How many of you have actually gone up and met your broker? 3, 4. Yeah, why not? So before you, if you're not in business yet, if you're not a carrier, which is what we're talking about here, one of the things you should be doing rather than worrying about your VOC3 is identifying who your customers are and going out and meeting them. Let me give you my drop-dead #1 best sales technique in a couple of minutes. This works so well it's stupid. And yet very few people ever do it. So I'm a new carrier. I need to find some freight. I live pretty close to Portland, Oregon. It's not hard to go on truckstop.com and find some brokers in Portland, Oregon, right?
Not hard at all.
Not hard at all. It takes me a couple minutes, if that, while I'm having my coffee in the morning. So I'm going to do a little research. I'll see the kind of loads they're posting. Is it the stuff I want? Are they in lanes that I like to run in? And I'll make a list of, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4, and I'll start making some phone calls. And I'm not going to call them and ask them for freight. That's what everybody does. And in today's market, they don't even bother calling. Because they don't have to. But I'm going to be the 1%. I'm going to call the broker and I'm going to tell them my story. Maybe I'll start with my elevator speech. I move freight really efficiently and I solve problems. Did I get their attention? Yeah, they're going to start asking me questions, but then I'm going to say, look, I'm setting up my business. In fact, I haven't even pulled my first load yet. Don't be afraid to say that. But you could also say, I've been driving a truck for 17 years and I'm really good at it. Now I want to be a carrier and I'm going to be really good at it. Sell yourself. Can I come in and take you to lunch? Or dinner, coffee, whatever it is. Have you set yourself apart already? Do we have any brokers in the room? Back there. If I did that, would I set myself apart immediately? Yeah, would you like that? Yeah. So I've immediately set myself apart. But I have one more, that when I tell people this, they look at me and think, that's just stupid, I'm not doing that. Yeah, you should. Here was I'm not good at sales, really. Sales was never my thing. What's so funny? Brent's good at sales.
You're the best salesman I've ever seen.
I'm not, really. I don't like sales. So I developed techniques that made it easy for me, so I didn't have to sell. And here was my drop-dead #1 technique for getting the best freight that's out there. When I met with that broker, coffee, lunch, dinner, whatever it happens to be, ball game, golfing, whatever your thing is, one of the first things I would ask them, I would ask for their worst load, their nightmare load, the load that they have to move because it's one of their better customers, but they hate that load every time it hits their desk. It probably doesn't pay well. It's one of those loads that everybody complains about because they got stuck at the dock, the people on the dock are jerks. Everything about that load sucks. Give me that load. Because what did I tell them I am? I'm a problem solver. Don't we want people that'll help solve our problems? That's what business is all about, solving somebody else's problems. But yet, 99% of the people, when they talk to that broker, they're trying to get his best load. Well, so are the other 99% of the people. But if I'm the only one asking for their worst load, first of all, am I going to get it? Oh, hell yeah. Do I want it? Not really. And are we going to do it forever? No. But am I going to prove myself in a way that nobody else did? And one of the things, we don't like to be told no. That's why sales is so hard. Brett, how many no's do you have to hear usually to get a yes in sales?
I believe the goal is to take at least 7 to 8.
7 to 8 no's. It's hard to hear no. You put yourself out there, you ask for something, somebody tells you no. That hurts. And in sales, you have to keep doing that over and over and over until you get a yes. Well, I didn't want to hear no. I figured out an easy way to hear yes. Give me your worst load. Yes, here you go. Oh, good. And now I'm going to make that load better. I will find a way. I don't care what the load, I will find a way to make it better because that's what I do. We'll problem solve. And I will find a way. And now, is that broker more likely to start giving me some of their better loans? Their best customers? Yeah, but I won't let them do that. See, people are afraid of that though, right? Oh, well, they're just going to just give me all the garbage. No, they won't. No, they won't. They might ask you for a favor now and then, and I'll do it. But business is about give and take. Yeah, I'll do favors for you, and you'll do favors for me. That's a win-win. So I'm not afraid that they're going to give me all their garbage. First of all, I'm not going to take it. That's not how this relationship's going to work. But they want to give you their best freight because you've proven to them now that you'll do a great job on their worst load. If I'm going to be this conscientious on your worst load, what am I going to do with your best when I'm being rewarded for it? That's what they're looking for, and they can't find it in this market.